Hello my friends and family, kindly sit comfortably and listen to this story. The story title, After 40 Years of Waiting, I Married the Richest Man in the World, though I paid a lot of tasks to get it done. For 4 decades, Angelina Manson had lived a life of anticipation and longing. She was not a young woman anymore, but still, in her heart, she harbored a dream that many thought was too impossible. After all, how many people had waited 40 years for something to happen? Yet, she had 40 long years. Her story was not one of heartbreak or defeat, but of determination, patience, and love that spanned beyond time. When she was 25, she had met Richard, a man whose wealth was the stuff of legends. But Richard was not just any billionaire, he was the richest man in the world, and yet, he had not been interested in Angelina back then. He had been wrapped up in his empire, focused on business, power, and expansion. But for her, he had always been the one. Angelina often laughed at the irony of it all. Why would the richest man in the world even care about a simple woman like me, she would think. Yet, as the years passed, and their paths crossed again and again, she realized that fate had a funny way of working. 40 years later, life had changed in ways she had never anticipated. Angelina had built her career in the world of high-end interior design, though she always kept a quiet vigil for Richard. She had traveled the world, gathered stories at the most glamorous locations, and yet, there was still that feeling of something missing, something waiting. Then, one day, the invitation arrived. It was a crisp, white envelope with Richard's name embossed in gold. The letter inside invited her to a gala at his mansion. Richard's company had just announced its latest acquisition, and he wanted to celebrate. The world's richest man wanted to celebrate with her, the same woman who had been waiting for him for decades. Suspense built within her. Was this the moment? Had Richard finally realized who she was? The night of the gala arrived. Angelina dressed in a luxurious black gown, feeling every ounce of her 40 years in anticipation. As she entered the sprawling ballroom of Richard's estate, the world seemed to blur. The lights were dazzling, the music hypnotic, and the guests? They were a mix of high society and world-famous billionaires, all seemingly smaller than Richard in her eyes. And then, there he was. Richard. He was exactly the man she remembered, though older, with a touch of silver at his temples and eyes that still carried the weight of the world. His presence filled the room as he greeted his guests with confidence. He seemed untouchable, but his eyes found hers. Time stopped. For just a moment, Angelina saw the glimmer of recognition. He had never forgotten her. "I'm glad you could make it, Angelina." Richard's deep voice broke the tension, sending chills down her spine. The evening carried on with the usual glamour. Yet, beneath the laughter and music, there was a sense of something more sinister. Richard took Angelina aside during a break in the event. "Angelina, we need to talk," he said. There was something in his voice that made her pause. He wasn't just being kind. There was a weight to his words. "What's going on, Richard?" she asked, trying to read him, but his face gave nothing away. "I want you to know that this gala isn't just about celebration. There's something I need from you." Her heart skipped a beat. What could he need from me? Richard's revelation hit her like a thunderclap. "I want to marry you, Angelina. But there's a catch. In order to marry me, you must pay a huge price. A literal price." She froze. "A price? What do you mean?" Richard's lips curled into a smile, but there was no humor in it. "I know you've been waiting for me for all these years. I've seen your dedication, and I admire it. But love, in this world, comes at a cost. For 40 years, you've wanted me. To make this final step, you must pay a tax, a massive one. It's not about money, but about what you're willing to sacrifice for me. It's symbolic. It's the only way to solidify this union." Angelina stared at him. "A tax? What kind of tax are you talking about?" The concept of this tax haunted her. She was no stranger to high society taxes. She had once paid a fortune in luxury taxes for a project. But this was different. This tax was emotional, psychological. It wasn't just about wealth, it was about her willingness to give up everything she had ever built, her career, her identity, to become part of Richard's world. The thought was overwhelming. Could she really give up everything she had worked for? Could she sacrifice her autonomy for a life with the richest man in the world? But Richard was not just anyone. He was the man she had loved for decades. He was the person who held the key to her happiness, and perhaps this was the ultimate test. Angelina spent sleepless nights trying to weigh her options. The idea of marrying Richard had always been a fantasy, but now it was becoming real. She thought of her friends, her family, her career. Could she give all of it up? As she sat in her study, contemplating the decision, the phone rang. "Angelina, it's me, Emma," came the voice of her best friend. "I heard about the gala and what Richard said. I know you've waited for him for years, but is this really the life you want? Do you really think this is the love you've been waiting for?" Angelina didn't know how to answer. The world outside her window seemed distant. She had waited so long for this moment, but the decision felt impossibly heavy. In the end, she made her decision. The tax was steep, and she had to pay more than she ever thought possible. She didn't just surrender her autonomy, she gave up parts of herself she had once cherished. But when she walked down the aisle, the sensation of walking toward Richard, who was standing there with an almost nervous look, made it all feel worth it. The crowd watched, the world seemed to slow. Richard was there, waiting for her, and with each step she took, her doubts melted away. But nothing in life ever comes without consequences. The tax had been paid. Richard was everything she had imagined. But there were whispers in the mansion. People in the know said that those who married Richard didn't always find happiness. They said his power was his only true love. Angelina didn't care. She had her love, her man, and the life she had dreamed of. But as the weeks passed, she started to see the subtle changes. Richard was distant, his work more important than ever. He gave her everything she needed but never what she truly wanted, his time. Despite the riches, the grandeur, and the excitement, Angelina realized that the true price of being with Richard was more than just taxes or wealth. It was the understanding that love and relationships were never as simple as paying a price. The lesson she learned was this: love can be a beautiful fantasy, but it can also be a sacrifice that demands understanding, patience, and respect. As the years went by, Richard and Angelina found their way. They learned that love, even when it feels like a fairy tale, requires constant work. It was no longer about waiting for a man to sweep her off her feet. It was about choosing to be with someone who, despite everything, had shown her that real love wasn't just about waiting, it was about growing together. And so, after 40 years of waiting, Angelina found that the true reward wasn't just the marriage to the richest man in the world. It was the realization that love, in all its forms, requires more than sacrifice. It requires balance. A balance that, despite the taxes and the fantasy, had to be learned. What the story taught us: Angelina's journey with Richard, the world's richest man, offers valuable lessons about love, sacrifice, and self-awareness. Here are the key takeaways. Patience and persistence can lead to rewards. Angelina waited for 40 years, holding on to her belief in the possibility of love and connection with Richard. Her persistence shows that sometimes, the things we desire most in life take time and dedication to manifest. Love isn't just about fairy tales. While the fantasy of marrying a billionaire might seem like a dream come true, Angelina learns that love requires more than just physical or financial attraction. It demands time, effort, and often sacrifices, both personal and emotional. The price of love can be high. Richard introduces the concept of a tax, a symbolic cost for marrying him. This teaches us that relationships often come with sacrifices, but the price isn't always financial. Sometimes, it's about giving up parts of ourselves, our dreams, or our personal space. Self-identity is important. Angelina faces the dilemma of losing her autonomy in exchange for a life with Richard. This highlights the importance of maintaining one's identity and values, even when caught up in a relationship with someone powerful or wealthy. Growth and understanding. By the end of the story, Angelina realizes that love requires growth, understanding, and constant effort. It's not enough to wait or dream. True love demands active participation, compromise, and growth from both individuals. Now, let's turn this into an interactive discussion. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this story. What do you think about Angelina's decision to wait for 40 years for Richard? Do you think patience is always a virtue, or do you believe that waiting for someone for so long might be detrimental to one's personal growth? Would you be able to wait for someone for decades? Or do you think love needs to be more immediate? What do you think about the tax Richard asked Angelina to pay? Do you agree with the idea that love requires sacrifices? If yes, what do you think is a fair tax to pay in a relationship? Would you sacrifice your personal identity or career for the person you love? Or do you think it's important to maintain a balance? How would you feel if you were in Angelina's position? Would you be comfortable with the idea of marrying someone so powerful yet distant? How would you manage balancing your career and love life if your partner was the richest person in the world? In the end, Angelina learned that love is about growing together. Do you think she made the right decision? Do you believe in the idea of growing together as a couple, even after facing challenges? How do you envision that growth? Can love truly thrive without compromise, or is compromise the only way to make it work? I'd love to hear your thoughts. What are your views on Angelina's experience? Does her journey resonate with your own life or relationships? Feel free to share your opinions on the comment section below. Kindly like, comment and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more episodes.